What's up, my beautiful people? Welcome to r/AskReddit with my horrible artwork, where today, a parking ticket costs a promising job applicant the position they just interviewed for. Alright, so the AskReddit question was, employers, what are the weirdest/stupidest answers you've ever seen on a job application? I wasn't necessarily an employer, but I was a manager of a small restaurant. The owner valued my input, but I couldn't hire or fire anyone without his permission. I had a kid bring in his application, and I guess he was making jokes and forgot to fix it. Under expected pay, he wrote, minimum crap. He was hired, and he was not a good fit. Really, no one saw that coming. Entry-level call center positions have really high turnaround, so when posted, there are usually several positions to fill for a training class. A guy applied for a position and listed his female supervisor from his previous job as a reference. He had just moved to our town from the next town over. After he had his interview, the supervisor also applied for the same job. On her resume, her position at the previous job was not as supervisor, it was the exact same position as the guy. They had the same address. It was his wife. On his resume, he used her first name and maiden name. On hers, she used a hyphenated last name. Same phone number and email address, blatantly obvious. Pretty sure his second reference was his dad. I even gave him the benefit of the doubt at first, not wanting to make assumptions, and called her for a reference just to see what she would say. She pretended to not have spoken to the guy in the 2 weeks since he had left his previous job, and pretended to still work there despite her resume stating she was no longer working there. How stupid do people think other people really are? Like, just be honest. Yeah, that's my man. We moved here together and both left the other place for such and such reason. And like, it wouldn't come out eventually if you did both get the job. Neither of them got the job, and she didn't even get an interview. Okay, so I actually worked at a call center when I was in college for a very brief time, and it no longer exists. But wow, this is the most intense vetting process for a call center position I have ever seen. For me, literally, it was someone showed up at my apartment door, gave me a little leaflet saying, hey, this place is hiring. I showed up the next day for a training class, told them my name, and was basically hired. That's how easy it was. What kind of call center is this? I worked at a place writing parking tickets. We did an interview with a guy who was pretty good. He left and came back 5 minutes later with a ticket. Turns out he'd parked illegally, blocking an alley entrance, and had been ticketed by one of our officers. He screamed at us and called us thieves and demanded it be dismissed. We didn't dismiss it. We literally can't, only the city could. He yelled some more and stormed off. He did not get the job. Again, is anyone surprised at that? I was interviewing internal candidates for a job at our location. The job posting asked for your last review and a letter of interest, basically a cover letter. We have computers and printers available for any employee to use, but one woman in her 40s, pretty intelligent, decided to handwrite her letter of interest on a scrap piece of 5x7 ripped paper. What the junk? The kicker was she wrote in the letter something like, I bet nobody else took the time to write a personal handwritten letter. Another time, I was interviewing an external kid in his early 20s for an entry-level stocking job. I asked one of the stock questions of, give me an example of a time you had a disagreement with a coworker. He goes into a story about some trivial argument where he and another coworker ended up getting into a fist fight at an A&W restaurant. I felt kind of bad that he thought it was an okay story to tell at a job interview. I mean, okay? Why would you think that that's appropriate? I mean, that's almost as bad as saying that under your special skills is money handling, but then having to admit you have a criminal conviction for theft under $1,000. I mean, they just don't go together. Hey, real quick, before the next story, if you've got any of your own workplace horror stories like these, go ahead and feel free to drop them in the comments because I love hearing from you guys, and these are the sorts of things I know everyone loves to kind of rant about. Guy interviewing for a front-end designer position listed that he'd worked on 1,200, if I remember right, websites at his current workplace, where he was doing an IT tech trying to transition to design/development. Obviously, I had to know what he did in those projects. He was just counting all of the WordPress deployments his coworkers did the actual design work on. loose use of that word, pretty sure they just reused existing templates with minimal custom work, where all he really did was manage the plugin/theme updates. In fact, all of the projects he listed specifically, he played a minor role. I already went into that interview pretty annoyed because my boss was ready to hire the guy based on a recommendation from a mutual friend alone. I remember asking basic design questions he couldn't answer or insisted he'd learn once he started. But we didn't have any dedicated designers to that point, and my boss was going to hire him as the lead designer. I told him I'm just a full-stack developer doing all the design work because we didn't have anyone on staff for it. And we really needed to hire someone that knows a lot more than me when that's what they do. He looked so dejected, I felt kinda bad, but I told my boss privately he was just going to eat up all our time training him, which I didn't have time for. And my boss probably told him the interview was a formality, but I was so against it as a lead developer, he ended up not hiring him. Instead, giving him 6 months to catch up with how to do the job/work on our front-end tech, and kept implying to me that he'd hire him if there's enough progress. My boss moved to a different position before that happened. Oh my gosh, so I think I've shared this story before, but when I was working in radio still, we had someone leave and I was the only one qualified to train a replacement, and my boss made this knee-jerk hire of a woman we'll just call Michelle. Now, Michelle was a bit older, had very little understanding of technology, reeked to high heavens as though she bathed in essential oils every day, and I could tell right from the outset this was not going to work, and I told my boss as such, as did one of my coworkers. Sure enough, it didn't, despite copious notes, literally stopping me after every sentence one day and writing down almost verbatim what I'd said. And about 12 weeks of training, I was still teaching her the most basic functions of how things worked. Yeah. After about 12 weeks, she finally left because her mom's health had a bit of a backslide, and so she had to step into a full-time caretaker role. And it was one of the most relieving things that has ever happened to me in my career. Oh my gosh, I hated working with her. Not sure if this counts, but it's worth a mention. During a year out from university, I took a job driving home shopping deliveries for a well-known supermarket. The interview process was one of those where there was a large group interviewing for a limited number of positions. I got chatting to this dude, and he mentioned that beforehand he'd been driving a minibus for a disabled kids thing. I said, "Oh, you might know my dad. He recently started doing that." He went, "Oh no, see, I had my minibus license revoked due to my convulsive epilepsy." What the frick, dude? And you're applying to drive these vans full time? Yeah, but they've not taken my regular driver's license yet, so it's all good until then. He didn't get the job. I did though. Oh no, it's all cool. I just seize up, have very little if any control of my bodily functions, and I'm only driving a large vehicle full of food. Nothing could go wrong at all. Except maybe that. What was he thinking? I mean, personal responsibility, man. Like, I get it. I'm sorry for you that you got epilepsy, but dude, there's some things that just kind of does disqualify you for. Frick. That was r/AskReddit, and if you want more funny workplace stories you might be able to relate to, then go ahead and check out one of my older videos at the link on the right, or you can check out the special playlist here on the left that has nothing but these types of stories. Now you guys stay safe, stay healthy. I will see you all on Wednesday with more of your dose of Reddit Hope and Happy. Until then, stay beautiful, people.